Eden Park, 7:05. You know this Rebel there for 30 years. Gavin Mairs is the chief rugby correspondent at the Daily Telegraph. He's here in beautiful, sunny, wintry Auckland, mate. Do you like it?
It's fantastic, mate. I was just saying to your producer there, I think we're getting better weather than London at the minute. So that's meant to be high summer. So we've been very, very lucky.
I tell you what, just listening to that accent, mate. I mean, you can't be a Martin Devlin on this side of the microphone and not recognise that accent.
Yes, Belfast boy originally, but I have been over in London for 15, 16 years now. So yeah, my children very English sounding, unlike their father. So I think they have trouble understanding me at times.
Before we even get on to the All Blacks versus England, is football coming home on Monday?
Oh, mate, I think, who knows? I think the general surprise that England have made the final, given some of the football they've played, but we did see them play their best game in that semi-final.
Agreed.
Who knows? Spain have got some 16-year-old wonder kid, and England don't have a great sort of history in finals, but yeah, we'll see. We'll be in mid-air, I think, flying back to London at the time, so... a few of the journalists here trying to work out how they can watch the match on the long-haul flight home.
Well, hopefully there's some Wi-Fi on there. I tell you what, I said you'll get the result before you touch down. It's either going to be absolute bedlam or it's going to be tears at bedtime. It'll be one of the two.
Yeah, no, I think someone watched it. I think there was a few early pubs open on Thursday morning for the semis.
Yeah, look, it's incredible even here in Auckland. I mean, the amount of people, look, everything is sold out for Monday morning. So, I just think, look, this far away on this side of the world, we actually like watching England fans at any sport. I mean, it was only so long ago, a couple of games that they were pelting, Gareth Southgate with paper cups and abusing and booing him. And now he's, but at the same time, this is the emotion of it, isn't it? Gavin, before we get into even the second test, just your thoughts on that first All Black performance and then the England performance in the first test down in Dunedin.
Yeah, I find it a contest. I think sort of the observers from overseas were really fascinated to see how the All Blacks would play under Scott Robertson. We'd all seen how well the Crusaders had done, but it was a sort of a stepping on into the unknown with a new head coach, relatively new coaching team, new captain, and I think probably. I got a sense a little bit they were maybe taken a little bit by surprise by England's, certainly their rush defence. England have improved significantly since the World Cup. Completely different team. We saw them sort of reset themselves really midway through the Six Nations, and it's quite a settled group that they're getting a sense of what they're about, what they want to do, put teams under pressure. And I think you saw, I don't know what you thought, but in the first half it looked like sort of the All Blacks were maybe trying to play a little bit too much rugby too deep, and that sort of played in England's hands a little bit. And I think you saw in the second half a bit of a tactical shift and more of an arm wrestle, and it could have gone either way. And I think England are a team in progress, shall we say, and to get within a point of the All Blacks, I think they will have taken that, but they'll also have thought, as we sort of wrote on, how many England teams win at all, as you know.
Look, I'm sitting here nodding away to your assessment of that, which I think is absolutely spot on. And if I can draw a parallel with their football team, there's two sides to England. It's the side that plays so conservative and attempts to stifle the opposition rather than try and win the game. And then we saw an England side that played Ireland in the Six Nations. And Gavin, they played brilliantly that day when they chanced their arm and they believed in themselves. So do you think that they're still stuck in that quandary with Steve Borthwick? And to me, that's a confidence thing, isn't it? That you've got to be, that whole belief thing that you can actually outplay and beat a side.
Yeah, so the key, if you look at what England failed at last weekend, really, when the pressure came on about 60-minute mark, they kind of stopped playing a little bit, and that was identified by the England coaches as, if you're going to beat an All Blacks team, you have to play for 80 minutes and you have to keep that intensity going. Now, genuinely, I've covered England for the last 15 years. The rugby they played at the World Cup was some of the most conservative, limited I've ever seen. But I think looking back now, Steve Borthwick would say he came into the job at the 11th hour. It gone down the Eddie Jones route and thrown everything out. I'd started again, and that had disastrous consequences at the tournament itself in France. Borthwick went with a very limited game plan with old, experienced players. They got to within a sort of scrum penalty of the final. What we have seen, and I do think this is genuine, I think midway through the Six Nations, they had a bad defeat against Scotland at Murrayfield. And I think from then they have put a much greater focus on their attack. And as you rightly pointed out, really caught Ireland by surprise at Twickenham. From the very first long kick by James Lowe, we saw George Furbank given the license just to run it back, look for space, attack space. And that surprised Ireland. And you know, it was a fantastic game. And I think we've seen again, they went to France in the last game in Marseille, points of beating France. And, you know, in a way the setup here has worked because they had the test match in Japan. It was really more of a glorified training run in sort of challenging conditions, humidity-wise, heat-wise, which was just sort of, I guess, perfect conditioning to come to New Zealand. And so I think in that sense, England were probably a bit more cohesive and a bit more advanced in their kind of team prep than the All Blacks. And this is where we get to tomorrow's match. You know, if you look at it and you think, well, really, New Zealand's second game under Scott Robertson, they've been together, they'll have analysed England's, you know, the change in England's play. And, you know, I think most observers would expect the All Blacks, you know, to really push on now and make up for those mistakes that they made, and probably win comfortably. But, you know, England, you know, they were in sort of bullish mood yesterday. They believe there's one big last game in them for what's the end of a kind of 13-month season, going back to those months where they're preparing for the World Cup back in June last year. So I just find this should be a compelling game.
So when you look at this All Blacks side as well, and you know, there's a saying in England football, England expects. Well, as far as the All Blacks go, New Zealand expects. We demand the bar is set incredibly high. This same group of players has essentially lost, on average, 3 tests a year for the last 4 years, which is very un-All Black-like. You know, normally if we lose 1 test a year, it's apoplexy. 2 tests a year, my God. 3 tests a year, and we failed. And then you take out the experience, you take out Whitelock, you take out Aaron Smith, you take out Retallick, the guys that we have lost, and you know, Richie Mwanga, another one. And so then, you know, you look at those that have replaced them. And I think this All Black side, and it's very rare in New Zealand to be honest about it, but you know, you've got to look at it and think that there's a heck of a lot of guys that have a hell of a lot to prove. And also aren't what we consider to be great All Blacks. If you picked a first 15, a world first 15 right now, Gavin, how many New Zealand names would be in that starting lineup? Whereas if you go back to 2015, you'd probably put 8 or 9, if not 10 of them down. So, you know, it's not an amazingly good All Black side. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, you know, because as you say, it's such a different mindset here that, you know, and I mean, I just love interviewing former All Blacks and, you know, Sean Fitzpatrick and stuff, and you talk about, you know, the fear of even losing 1 test match was just what motivated him more than anything. And, you know, whereas the home unions up north are very, you know, it's you're looking for 3 out of 5 is a good season. But yeah, so I think, I mean, the other thing about the Eden Park record as well, 30 years. I mean, I was writing a piece overnight that I think only 2 of the England starting 15 were even born when the All Blacks last lost a game in Auckland. So,
yeah,
when you put it like that, it's just remarkable. But you know, so I guess there's I don't know how much you feel that. Does that come into their minds?
Yes,
think at all?
I think so. I think it's look. All of these records, if they don't come into their minds, they should. These guys get handsomely paid these days on the back of what a whole lot of players did who never got paid. You know, and this is why, you know, we have Justin Marshall on every week. We, you know, have Murray Mexted. These guys, is still feeling the fact we lost a test series at home to Ireland. We lost to Argentina for the first time. We lost at home. These are proud records that over 100 years that they stood. And, we can never be so flippant as All Blacks and All Black fans as to say, oh, that's okay, this is how it is. He said, no, it's not. The day that you let that slip, you become an average side that other teams expect to beat. What we want from Scott Robertson is to take us back to that point where every single test match, the opposition look at us and feel like they're 10 points behind.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. And I wonder whether, again, it's just fascinating to see how Scott Robertson deals with the pressure as well. Himself coming in as a new coach, and I mean, from the north, it was always seen that there was a yearning for him to come in and maybe, I don't know, shake things up a little bit. He's kind of charismatic figure, and the sort of, we've been used to very sort of reverent, the elocuted, articulate sort of Graham Henrys, Hansen, Foster after that, and it's just it feels like a different spell. And he's got, but interestingly, I think the Scott Barrett captaincy as well, maybe, I don't know, is that part of a thing to sort of set that tone of what's expected and a sort of menacing physical edge?
Yes.